Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to tonight's Madrasatul Mumti'az Nahw online class. And today we are going on to our topic number 74 of the Nahw class. مقارنة بين إعراب الأفعال الخمسة اسم المثنى وجمع المذكر السالم. So what we are basically treating in this topic is comparing and contrasting between the grammatical analysis of the five special verbs, the أفعال الخمسة, the dual nouns, the اسم المثنى, and the جمع المذكر السالم, the sound plural masculine noun. So, and the importance of treating this topic is that it is easy for a student to mix up the I'rab of these separate but similar different types of words in Arabia. So, and that is why we are going in depth to going the extra mile to explain the differences between them. So, we look at the differences between this Af'alul Khamsa and Ism al-Muthanna. So, the first thing we are going to look at is the difference between the Af'alul Khamsa and the Ism al-Muthanna. The similarity that we can see is that each of these both of them end with an alif and nun, and in both cases. So if we see the ism al-muthanna, for example, Muslim is a singular noun, and if we want to turn it into the dual form, it becomes muslimani, two Muslims. You can see it ends with an alif and nun. And we also look at the af'al al-khamsa. From the af'al al-khamsa, we find out that there is the form of yaf'alani, they are both doing. So in the case of in that case in the case of af'alul khamsa, we have yaf'alani and taf'alani, which also end with an alif and nun. So however, despite the fact that we have the same suffix, the alif and nun, their i'rab are very different in the two cases, because the alif performs a different function and it behaves in a different way in an ismu compared to a fi'l. So in the case of the ismu, like al-muslimani yuslimani lillah, it is very tempting for you as a student to make a mistake in the i'rab, to do the i'rab of muslimani and yuslimani in the same way, because they both end with alif and nun. However, this would be technically very incorrect. This is why. So if we look at the af'alul khamsa, what is the function of that alif in the af'alul khamsa? In the af'alul khamsa, that alif that we see that in yuslimani, that alif after the mim is called an aliful ithnain. Aliful ithnain is a domir. So it functions, it is the fa'il of that verb yuslimani. So if you look at the fa'il yuslimani, which is a fa'il al-mudari', that alif there is the fa'il of that verb. It is the performer of the verb. So when we say yuslimani, they both submitted. So the word that means they in that sentence is that aliful ithnain. So no matter what happens to yuslimani, whether it is in any of the cases, whether it is in a raf'un case or a nasbu case or a jarru case, our alif will always be there. If you remember that we explained that the alama to raf'un in that case, however, is the nun. So the nun is the alama to raf'un in yuslimani. And so if maybe we have lam yuslima, which is maybe they did not submit, and we remember that lam is an alama to the jazmi, that yuslimani will claim the nun, but the alif will always remain because it is an aliful ithnain. So let's remember, for the af'alul khamsa, that alif is called an aliful ithnain and it's a domir. So it will always be present in the verb, no matter the i'rab, no matter what happens to that noun yuslimani, we would always have our aliful ithnain present. However, on the other hand, if you look at the ism al-muthanna, the alif that is in muslimani, after that mim, that alif muslima, that alif, it is not an alif al-ithnain. That is very important. This is where the important distinction lies. It is not an alif al-ithnain. Why? Alif al-ithnain is a domir, and muslimani does not have a domir inside of it. It is a noun, and so an alif al-ithnain can never exist in an ism. So maybe anytime you're about to confuse it and you're not sure is this alif an alif al-ithnain or not, then just always remember that alif al-ithnain cannot exist within a noun. So that alif, it is not an alif al-ithnain. What is its function in that word? In this case, the alif functions as an alama to raf'a. So when we look at muslimani, what is showing us that this word is in a raf'a case? It is what? That alif. And because it is a sign of raf'a, we realize that anytime we are changing muslimani from a raf'a case, for example, let me say ataytuhu ila al-muslimina, I gave it to ila muslimaini, I gave it to two Muslims. We realize that muslimani becomes what? Muslimaini. That alif is replaced by a ya, which now shows us that it is a nasbu or in a jarri case. So that is the function of that alif. So the alif in a noun is an alama to raf'a, and that is why whenever it is no longer in a state of raf'a, it becomes what? It becomes a ya. So that is the important distinction between the Af'al al-Khamsa and the Ism al-Muthanna. So in the Af'al al-Khamsa, which are usually the dual verbs, yaf'alani, like yuslimani, or taf'alani, like tuslimani, in that case, our alif is an aliful ithnain. It is our domir and fa'il of the performer of the verb. However, when we have an ismul muthanna, we cannot have an aliful ithnain. That alif is an alama to raf'a. It is a sign of raf'a. So that is the important distinction. So let's quickly do the i'rab of our example sentence. Al-muslimani yuslimani lillah. So how do we do the i'rab of this sentence? We say al-muslimani mubtada'un marfu'un bi alif li'annahu muthanna. Mubtada, it is a beginner, it is a word that begins a sentence, a jumlatul ismiya. Marfu'un, which is it is in a state of rafa', it is in the nominative case. The alif, what is our sign of rafa' here is what? It is our alif. Why is our sign of rafa' alif? Li'annahu muthanna, because it is a dual noun. However, our fi'l yuslimani, we say fi'l mudari' because we know it is a fi'l mudari', it is a present tense verb. Marfu'un, it is also in the nominative case, it is marfu' bi thubuti noon. So what is our alama to rafa' here? The presence of this noon here is what makes us know that this is in a nominative case. لأنه من الأفعال الخمسة, because anytime we have any of the أفعال الخمسة, what makes us know they are in a rafa' state is this presence of noon. So in case we have alama to the jazmi like lam yuslima, so that noon becomes erased because it is no longer in a rafa' case. So for the fi'l, the alama to rafa' is what? Thubuti noon. However, for the ism, alama to rafa' is what? Alif. So that is the very important distinction between ism al-muthanna and the af'al al-khamsa. In ism al-muthanna, the alama to rafa' is our alif, and our noon la mahalla lahu min al-i'rab. It does not have any place in i'rab. On the other hand, in our fi'l, our alama to rafa' is what? Our noon. So what does our alif here do? This is our alif al-ithnain. It is a domir, and this is what? The fa'il. So that is why we do this i'rab here, that what? Alif is in yuslimani is what? Alif al-ithnain damirun muttasil. It is a connected pronoun. Mabniyun ala sukun في محل رفع الفاعل, in the place of the رفع of the fa'il. So similarly, we are also going to treat the distinction between ismul jam'u mudhakkar salim and af'alul khamsa. So we also have a similar situation when we have the af'alul khamsa, such as yaf'aluna or taf'aluna. And when we have jam'u mudhakkar salim, like al-muslim, one Muslim, muslimuna, many Muslims. So let's look at it. So it is also in a similar case here. Here, however, instead of alif and nun, we have waw and nun is the same suffix. But however, the i'rab are also very different for the fa'il and the ism, because the waw performs a very different function and it behaves differently in each of these two cases. So just like we have alif in the af'alul khamsa, which is a domir, in the af'alul khamsa, when we have a waw like taf'aluna or yaf'aluna, which means you are doing, like yuslim, they are doing. So yuslimuna, they are submitting or they submit. So this waw here is also what is called a wawul jama'a, a waw that shows plurality, and it is a domir. It is also a pronoun performing the function of the fa'il of the verb. It is the one performing the verb. Yaf'aluna is performed by what? By the wawul jama'a. That is our fa'il. So no matter the i'rab, we will always have our wawul jama'a present. So whether we have yaf'aluna or it goes into a state of nasb, like an yaf'alu, for them to what? For them to do. So and yaf'alu, we find out that the nun is removed, but the waw always remains. Or even if we have alamatul jazm like lam yuslimu, they did not submit, we find out that even though there is an alamatul jazmi, our waw is always present no matter the i'rab in the af'alul khamsa. Why? Because the wawul jama'a is the fa'il. So whenever we have a fa'il and there is a wawul jama'a in it, that wawul jama'a is a domir and it is the performer of the verb. So just remember, when we have a verb, that waw is called what? A wawul jama'a, and it is a domir, it is the performer of the verb. However, when we have the ismu jam'ul mudhakkar salim, however, we find out that this waw, it is not what? It is not a wawul jama'a, because we cannot have a wawul jama'a in an ism. We cannot have a wawul jama'a in an ism. Rather, what is the function of that waw? That waw is an alama to raf'a. It is just there to show us that this thing is this word al-muslimuna is in a case of raf'a, is in a nominative case. So that is the function of that waw. And we find out that when we remove it from that nominative case, for example, we add harful jarri before it, we say lil muslimin, we find out that that waw disappears and it gives way to a ya when it is in a state of nasbu or in a state of jarru. That is what is going to happen to jam'ul mudhakkar salim that has a waw, because jam'ul mudhakkar salim, it is what? It is usually shown by a waw, and whenever, and that this waw works as what? This waw works as an alama to raf'a, and that is why whenever it is not in the case of raf'a, it becomes what? A ya. That's why we have muslimina. So let's quickly look at the i'rab similarly. So similarly, we also look at the i'rab al-muslimuna yuslimuna lillah. So you may be tempted to do the same i'rab for these two words, because we are seeing that, oh, muslimuna, yuslimuna, they sound very similar. However, the i'rab is very different for an ism versus a fi'l. So al-muslimuna, we have mubtada'un marfu'un. It is a mubtada, it is a word that starts a jumlatul ismiyya. Marfu'un, it is in a state of raf'a bil wawi. What shows us that it is in a state of raf'a is what? Is that waw. This waw here. And this waw is what is our alama to raf'a. It is not a wawul jama'a. Always remember, we cannot have a wawul jama'a in the middle of an ism. مبتدأ مرفوع بواو لأنه جمع مذكر سالم. Why are we having waw as the alama to refer? Because it is a jamu muzakkar salim. It is a masculine plural noun. However, when we have yuslimuna, it is a fi'l mudari'. It is a present tense verb. Marfu'un, in a state of raf'u bi thubuti nun. What makes us know it is in a state of raf'u? The presence of this nun. When it is no longer in a state of raf'u, we cannot have this nun in the verb. لأنه من الأفعال الخمسة, because the أفعال الخمسة, what always shows us that they are in a state of raf'u is what? Thubut in nun. That nun would be erased if it is no longer in a state of raf'u. For example, when we say lam yuslimu, they did not submit. It's that lam, because it is an adatu jazmi, it takes it to a state of jazm, and it is no longer has a nun. So remember, for the noun, we are going to have our waw in the noun is an alama to raf'u. And always remember, because in a noun we cannot have a domir, so we cannot call it a waw li jama'a. A waw li jama'a is a domir, and that domir is the fa'il of the verb. And so if we have a noun, then there is no verb for that waw to perform any function on, so we cannot call it a waw li jama'a. It cannot be a fa'il. So that waw only functions as a fa'il when we find it in the middle of a fi'l, and that is when we call it a waw li jama'a, because it is a domir. So a very brief recap, and it's summarized on this table, that when we have alif in the af'al al-khamsa, like yaf'ala, like yuslimani or tuslimani, that alif functions as what? An alif li-ithnain, and it is a domir. So no matter the i'rab, the alif is retained. On the other hand, when we have ismul muthanna, that alif is what? It is a sign of raf'u, like muslimani, and that alif is removed whenever the word is no longer in a state of raf'u. On the other hand, if we look at our waw, that waw works as a domir when we have it in the middle of a fi'l, and it is called what? Waw al-jama'a. And because it is a domir and the performer of the verb, it is retained no matter the i'rab that is involved. However, when we have it in the middle of an ismu, it works as the sign of raf'u. It is not a waw al-jama'a. Rather, the waw can be removed when the word is no longer in a state of raf'u. So that brings us to the end of today's lesson. We hope that the listeners understand it better than the speaker has explained it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from us as an act of ibadah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.